Hi, I'm Brian Santo, the editor of CED. We are live at the show at Cable-Tec Expo in Orlando. I'm sitting here with Mark Zuban, President and CEO of the Society for Cable and Television Engineers, the SCTE. Good morning.
Good morning.
This poor guy has been soldiering on through a flu, so normally he is a tenor. Today he's a baritone, but we're going to be able to see if we can make it through.
Thank you.
Mark, my impression is a slightly larger crowd this year and a slightly larger show floor. How's the show itself been doing?
I think the show's been doing well. It's somewhat of a new, you're seeing some changes in how we put the content together. As an example, this is the beginning of a relationship with Cable Labs, with stepping up the MSO relationships around education. How do we develop the next generation workforce, and what are those things we need to do to really take material steps, not just talk about it, take material steps.
This is kind of the first time that the SCTE has been able to demonstrate some of a lot of the new things it's been doing. You've got a green initiative, SEMI. You've got this new relationship that we've been forging with some of your colleagues at the NCTA and at Cable Labs. This is really the first time you've been able to discuss a lot of them in public, I think. For instance, this relationship you just referred to with Cable Labs, with the NCTA. Can you describe how that's working and how that's going to work as we move forward?
Yeah, that's a great topic because, you know, when I came on board, it was like ships in the night. But yet, I think we have potentially very crisp areas of responsibility, and that's what we've done over the past year. I have to give a lot of credit to Tony and Mike and Terry Cordova from Suddenlink and the CTOs, the CEOs, the folks at the senior level that said, how can we work together to create a synergy that creates value for the industry? So what we did is about a year ago, we laid out a diagram that says, here's what we believe the responsibilities are. NCTA is basically legal, regulatory policy. Cable Labs is the vision of what we need to compete in the marketplace with, so therefore new services and the technology to deliver those services. And then SCTE is really the applied science arm that says, all right, how do we turn the vision, that's really a specification, into a network, right? So we have the standards body, we have the training programs, we have the educational piece parts for both vendors and operators, and then in other words, we can do the first off, and that then we need to scale the system, but then how do you operate the system over time? So there's a couple pieces. The first off, the training to get us up to scale and operating a network, highly sustainable and very efficient over time. So you see the different pieces. You see energy management, which is a sustainability piece, and we mean it as a business function, right? Saving money and making our networks more efficient and more reliable at the same time. Then the training aspects, which as an example, the Cable Labs model today is we wouldn't have been able to present 3.1 at this event without really a partnership with Phil. And I have to give my hats off to Phil, who said, hey, how do we work together to accelerate the vision so we don't hand over a manual that says, here's the next service, here's the next technology, and you run from there. How do we work in parallel so we can accelerate the time frame to deliver and get products to market and revenue much quicker? So that's our mission. And this is an example of 3.1, who has been working for a relatively short period of time, but now we're already talking about how do we deploy it. That could have taken 6 months or more to actually get into the circuit, or to get it to the scale would have been the next Expo. So that's a good example. There's many, many more coming behind.
So you mentioned Mike and Tony. They're like Cher and Madonna. They're one name people. Everybody knows who you're talking about. Phil is Phil McKinney, the new CEO over at Cable Labs. I just want to mention that just because not everybody has met him yet.
Yeah, and let me talk about Phil too. I've got to know Phil a bit just by, obviously he was on a panel with us here, but I've spoken to him, and the concept, I believe, right out of the chute was how do we work together aligned? And I think Mike and Tony and others were certainly helpful in that. But what I saw though was his natural, let's call it focus on innovation, and how he's re-architecting Cable Labs to say, let's quit fooling around with stuff that doesn't really add value. Let's really focus on innovation and the methodology to optimize innovation. And that's not just your traditional organization. There's very specific things you need to do to optimize innovation. And by the way, innovation isn't always successful. That you may only get 2 to 3 to 4 out of every 10 that are worth pursuing, but you have to go down that road.
Well, that's the Gretzky philosophy. 100% of the shots you don't take don't go in, right?
Absolutely.
All right. You mentioned 3.1, DOCSIS 3.1. The details of that finally came out this year, this session, and we can talk about DOCSIS 3.1 a little bit, but one of the reasons I wanted to circle back to it was because it does in fact speak to what you were talking about a moment ago about training. After the discussion about what the details of 3.1 were, SCTE CTO Daniel Howard talked about how, with the intention to get 3.1, the spec finalized by 2013 and product out by 2014, that means that the accelerated schedule requires that people get trained in these brand new technologies, and some of these technologies are brand new to cable, in parallel with the development of the spec.
So think about this. If you're into project management, it actually all comes together, because if you do it serially, you end up with launching a product that the field doesn't have any experience in. So there's a huge nosebleed. Unfortunately, a lot of customer dissatisfaction when you're trying to launch a new service, a new technology, while you're debugging the network and facilities. So this is a way to actually get a jump on it, to have everybody trained, the network set up to deliver that level of performance that's expected from 3.1. So it'll be a much smoother transition to very competitive networks. There's a whole train of evolution that's in our roadmap, and this is a big step, and that I think this being launched is a good model for, we're going to learn by this, and we're going to continue to get better at it. What do we need to do better? What I love about Cable Labs, though, is they've said, hey, why don't you join us in some of these discussions so you can actually see how this is evolving, so you can start to think about what training you need to do, because training just doesn't happen overnight. You got to think about, what does the content look like? You got to vet it, you fine tune it, and there's different mediums, right? So we're able to shorten that now by being a part of the process much earlier, and my hat's again off to Phil.
All right. We've heard about some really cool new programs out of the SCTE. One of the ones you mentioned at the opening session was VetNet. Can I get you to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure, and that's one that's near and dear to my heart. I served in Korea and was in combat zone for about 16 months. I was 18 when I went in, 20 when I got out, and I felt like an old man. And
and now here you are, even younger.
Drove the DMZ in my Jeep. So, and I understand the perils. I mean, it was 10 years before I really got over the combat experience and what it was like to go back into civilian life. And the kids today probably, it's a different experience, and I understand the problem that they've got. And the problem we're trying to solve, which is very complementary, is our industry is looking for skills. And think about the problem. The network complexity is multiplying very rapidly, right? We're going to automate it as much as we can, but still, to troubleshoot a network, you have to understand it. Otherwise, we're going to have to go to robotics or artificial intelligence, and we're nowhere near that, right? So what's going to end up happening is that we still need a very, very intelligent management and leadership in the technology and operations side. So, but unfortunately, the skills from the field, let's call it the folks out of high school and technical schools, are not necessarily at the level we need for them to come in and be materially efficient in our organization, so in our industry. So the veterans are naturally aligned to one objective, to all IP networks. They operate all IP networks. What is the second problem of the day? Cybersecurity. Most of them in telecommunications are into cybersecurity. Third, how do we get disciplined folks that have a work ethic and a characteristic that is very, very dedicated to the business.
Right.
We're all in this together. This is a family, right? And that's one of the attributes of our business. These are the folks that have that character. So with the high unemployment rate, I think we can do better to bring some of them in. And also, I'm saddened that women in the military have twice the unemployment rate that men do. And we need to address that too. There's a lot of skilled women out there that we could definitely use, and we've got to figure out where they are and get them into our business.
Well, good luck with that program. I'll move to something probably a little less intense. You guys brought in a fantastic keynote speaker, a fellow named Dean Kamen, possibly best known for inventing the Segway. He has revived what had been a 200-year-old technological dead end and turned it into something
Yes.
that might be really interesting and very useful for the cable industry.
That is true. We've been working with Dean on a couple of fronts. One is FIRST, which is U.S. First Educational, really creating robotics competition. That's part of our workforce, future workforce development. And then this Stirling engine, and the Stirling engine is interesting. History goes back to, I think the earliest patent is like 1810 or
1816, yeah.
1816, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that what we liked about it, and I had to go back through my engineering books, went to, I looked it up on the internet and I'm going, external combustion engine. What the heck, right? And then I read on external combustion engine, and it's the refrigerator in reverse.
Yeah.
And think of how long your refrigerator operates. So one of the problems we're trying to solve in what we believe is a very threatening environment, one, and number two is how do we improve the reliability of our network? The Stirling engine, as an example, a diesel or a gasoline engine may have a life of, for the less expensive, maybe 2,000 hours, more expensive, which would be a diesel, and it's commercial, maybe 5,000 hours. The Stirling has the potential of 20 to 30,000 hours. So say if we run into a cyber attack as one scenario, and or there's been terrorist issues with power distribution or whatever, the network may be down with a cyber attack for days or a week, could be. Right, so we're looking at all this kind of stuff, and I mean this is kind of a vision to be, disaster recovery-like thinking. May never happen, in fact, most likely, and hopefully it won't. But these engines could run for a very long period of time to sustain basic communications with our facilities and to sustain critical assets that we need to run. And also for highly reliable networks like e-medicine between hospitals and medical offices. Today, where the network, especially some parts of the country between lightning strikes and everything else, just is not very reliable. Yeah. And that this can be a source where we can not only power our network, but there's enough reserve energy to sell power back to the utility grid.
Right, right.
So the discussion is say our industry has hundreds of thousands of power supplies in the field. In time, we can sell back during a crisis almost 8,000 watts for every single power supply that is a Stirling engine, as an example of one model, back to the utility and eliminate peakedness issues with power consumption, all kinds of things. So it's thinking, and there's been no hard commitment today. It's thinking about problems we need to solve in a smart way. Mm-hmm. And he's been one of the, I'd say, innovators that's really has a product that we're looking at like anybody else. Does somebody have a good product? We're going to take a look at it. But this is one that's sustained kicking the tires.
Very cool. Last question I wanted to ask you. You guys did a fantastic job the last 3 days raising some money for the SCTE Foundation. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is again, how do we do a better job with our workforce? How do we sustain our existing workforce and build new resources to our business? So about 2 months ago, it wasn't long actually, Julian Brodsky, Tony Werner, Mike LaJoy, you can put the list together. We're going, hey, I think we can do this, because the bottom line is we have no alternative. We really have to do a better job at developing the skills we need to drive differentiating in the marketplace. So they don't talk about it, they're pretty serious about it, because they all put up a significant amount of money. This wasn't a little cash. This wasn't on a credit card. Right? So we raised pretty close to $1 million before we even announced it. And this was done in 60 days. And that we believe with Julian's help and Tony, Mike, and I'm pushing in there with them, we can raise another $1 million, possibly more. But we think that this is going to be critical to supporting our Dartmouth program, Georgia Tech. We have a potential software program coming out with we're researching now with the premier university that we may announce next year. Also, it goes right down to basic certification. So we're looking at the workforce from all the way at the top leadership, technical skills, right down to you need to get certified in basic installation and field maintenance. So, and we believe we want to put most of the dollars where the biggest issues are. We need to take care of our workforce in the field, and that we want to continue to grow the value and the skills in those folks.
You guys have been doing great work all along, doing it even more. It's fantastic to see. Where are we going to be next year?
We're going to be in New Orleans, and I think you heard that Kevin Hart is going to be the chair.
Excellent.
Yeah, we knew this. I'm changing the mode of how we define chairs. It used to be, as an example, we'd think about it the week before an expo and then announce it at the expo. I'm doing it a year ahead of time, sometimes 2 years ahead of time.
Okay.
Because the relationship and the learning curve, everything we do, we need to figure out how to do better the next time, right? Mm-hmm. So what you see is a change of our model. Terry Cordova was really the beginning of our model change, which is dynamic. Ludington's taken it to a new role, and every year is going to be a different set of topics, and we want it to be much more educational. Yeah. Not just the tour of the floor, which is important, right, but like the 3.1, the Cable Labs relationship. You had seen Dane Snowden from SCTE here, great partner of the guys. I mean, Michael Powell's going to be at our Dartmouth program in May, sponsoring it as our guest. So they're really stepping up. But what's terribly important about it, though, is that I'd like to see on the committee, like for Kevin, Ludington, who brings in the experience, and the 2014 chair, which has already been selected, to join it, so we have continuity between each one of them to do it bigger, better, smarter.
This is Brian Santo, the editor of CED, live from the show with Mark Zuban, CEO and President of the SCTE.
Ryan, thank you. Very much appreciate the time.
You're very welcome.